Tonight, you wake beneath a thin straw mat in a crumbling, frost-bitten hut on the outskirts of an unfamiliar town. The soft hiss of the wind outside filters through cracks in the bamboo walls, and your breath comes out in faint clouds. You hadn't meant to fall asleep fully clothed, but the worn wool hourie around your shoulders was your only barrier against the cold. Your limbs are stiff from the bruises of the night before. Your sword rests nearby, dulled and spotted with rust. Its ceremonial now a shadow of what it once was and what you once were. There was a time when you served the Lord, when your days were ordered by duty, by structure, by expectation. Now, your days are ruled by the empty space left behind. You are a samurai without a master. You are ronin. In feudal Japan, this wasn't merely a matter of unemployment. It was shame made visible. You bore a title that once meant prestige protector, warrior, noble, but now meant hunger, suspicion, and constant watchfulness. The rice you boiled last night is long gone, a meager handful scraped from a neighbor's pity. Your belly is hollow, echoing with the ache of hunger that has become familiar. Being a ronin, you are both visible and invisible. To some, you're a threat. To others, a cautionary tale. Most simply avert their eyes. There is a reason the samurai dreaded this fate. To be a warrior without a war, a retainer without a lord, is to lose not just your position, but your place in the universe. Bushido, the code of the warrior, demands loyalty unto death. And yet, here you are, still breathing. Some ronin sought release through death by provocation, challenging others into fatal duels. Others drowned themselves in sake, collapsing under the weight of memories they could not outrun. You, for now, survive. You step outside. The streets are packed dirt, frozen solid. Footprints from the night before are etched into the frost like fossils. A woman in a pale blue kimono glances your way and quickly lowers her eyes. You walk past the tea house, long shuttered at this hour. You remember when you could afford to sit inside, with the warmth of roasted barley tea in your hands and whispers of poetry in the air. Now you drift through the streets like a forgotten ghost. In the world of the Tokugawa shogunate, you are not just jobless, you are a contradiction. Bushido was merciless in its clarity. A samurai lives to serve. Without a master, your very existence becomes suspect. You may have become a ronin through war, your daimyō fallen in battle, disgraced or forced to commit seppuku. Perhaps your house was dissolved by decree. Or maybe, during the long peace, your sword simply became politically inconvenient. A sword was no longer the currency of power. It was a relic. Sharp, yes, but an inconvenience to the gears of governance. And so, you wander. You try to find work. Not as a samurai, those days are gone, but perhaps as a scribe, a bodyguard, even a stable cleaner. One merchant shakes his head and mutters that he doesn't trust men with idle swords. Another offers a laughably low wage to clean stalls, so long as you leave your blade outside. You nod and move on. Villages are wary of your kind. To the peasantry, ronin are figures of unease. Too proud to work the fields, too skilled to be harmless, too hungry not to be dangerous. Some ronin begged. Others challenged local dojos for coin. Some turned to crime. Others became teachers, bodyguards, or mercenaries hired muscle for whoever could afford their fading loyalty. By midday, you find yourself by a slow-moving river, its banks laced with ice. Children laugh nearby, their voices sharp against the silence. You close your eyes and remember your training years of it, learning the art of balance, of blade, of posture, and presence. You recall the scent of sandalwood in your lord's estate, the brush of silk sliding over polished wooden floors, the echo of your name spoken in court. That name means nothing now, not here. On cold nights, you remember the rhythm of life in service, the call to arms, the stern voice of your master issuing commands, the thick smell of oiled armor, the quiet ritual of tea. But those days are distant, blurred like a lantern behind a paper screen. At night, the inns close their doors to you. You are not welcome unless you pay up front. So you find refuge near an old roadside shrine. You settle there, the faint incense mixing with the scent of moss and wet earth. You do not pray, not anymore. Some ronin turned to banditry. Some tried to reclaim honor through seppuku, but even that had rules. Even death, for you, must now wait for permission. Others taught swordsmanship to merchant sons for a few coins, or took to calligraphy, or poetry, delicate arts that required no title, only time and solitude. And still, the sword at your side remains. It is your only companion, a symbol of your former self. It marks you as one who has failed to fulfill the sword's true purpose. It is, in some ways, a scar. Days pass. You scrounge. You repair your sandals with twine. You cut kindling with your once prized blade, lighting small fires behind broken fences, careful not to be seen. Yet you are not alone. In the early dawn, you pass another ronin. A young man with sunken eyes, his armor patched and dusty. He nods. You nod back. No words are exchanged. None are needed. Sometimes, young ronin band together in loose brotherhoods, sharing food, stories, and the slow erosion of hope. They tell tales of finding a new lord, of being welcomed again into a great house. But more often than not, these dreams dry up like ink in the sun. In cities like Edo, some ronin sell their swords to the highest bidder merchants needing protection, nobles seeking intimidation, or something darker. Others sit in cheap tea houses, their calloused hands cradling warm cups, eyes staring into silence. The daily life of a ronin is not glorious. It is threadbare and repetitive. Each day is a search for sustenance. Each interaction is a negotiation of dignity. Each night, a quiet performance of fading memories. But in the quiet corners of this exile, some find traces of meaning. The hush of a temple garden, sunlight filtering through tall roadside grasses, the faint echo of a drum from a nearby festival. Life is sparse, but not without poetry. If you listen closely enough, even solitude can sing. The rhythm of your life becomes one of slow, tired, steady motion. Some days, your feet ache more than your spirit. Other days, it's the opposite. But still, you walk. And as the moon rises once more over the cold hills, you sit quietly beneath a tree. You are still. A figure carved into the earth by time and wind. There is a strange serenity here, even in hardship. While the world has rejected you, the stars remain. The wind still speaks in soft voices. And your breath, slow and even, still fills your lungs. The rhythm of your life is one of endurance, of loss that never quite becomes silence. And in that rhythm, there is peace. Not the peace of glory, not the peace of honor, but the peace of continuing one moment more. And now, we step into another part of this world. We turn from the anonymous wandering of the ronin to a story that etched itself permanently into the soul of Japanese history. A story not of survival, but of revenge, of ritual, and of fate. Let us now hear the tale of the 47 ronin and the long, quiet path that led them into legend. Segment 2. The 47 ronin, loyalty or folly. The snow is falling softly. You are standing at the edge of Edo modern-day Tokyo, as it once was. A quiet city of narrow lanes and wood-framed homes, still hushed in the hours before dawn. The rooftops are coated in pale frost, and the only sound is the muffled crunch of sandals on packed snow. The air tastes of pine smoke and distant incense. Lanterns flicker behind paper walls. The clack of wooden clogs echoes now and then through narrow alleys. Fires glow behind shoshi screens, casting golden shadows across wooden floors. Edo sleeps, but it sleeps lightly, as all great cities do. awake in some corners, watching in others. And tonight, something is unfolding. A story long in the making. So quiet, so deliberate, that it would echo across the centuries. 47 men move through the city calm, black-clad, faces wrapped against the cold. They carry blades, but not like common assassins. Their breath fogs gently in the night air. Their hearts are steady, their steps measured. They do not rush. They do not shout. They are ronin, but not wandering, not lost, not tonight. To understand how they arrived at this moment, we must return back to Kyoto, to a place not of swords, but of ceremony. The year is 1701. You are Lord Isano Naganori, daimyō of Akoe Modest, honorable domain. You are young, and the burden of duty weighs heavily on your shoulders. Summoned by the shogunate, you now stand in Edo Castle's high-ceilinged chambers, wrapped in silks, surrounded by gold screens and silence. Your task is delicate, to host envoys of the emperor himself. Every motion, every word, is governed by ancient etiquette. And beside you stands the man meant to guide you, Kira Yoshinaka, the shogun's master of ceremonies. Kira is a man of rank and ritual, but not of warmth. He is older, sharp-eyed, and widely believed to be greedy. He expects gifts, lavish ones. Take, coin, silks. You offer what you think is appropriate. He finds it insulting. And so, day after day, he mocks you. In whispers. Then, in front of others. He corrects you with cruel precision. He humiliates you. Until finally, something within you snaps. In the corridor of Edo Castle, where weapons must remain sheathed, you draw your short blade and strike. The cut is clumsy. You do not kill Kira, only wound him. But you have drawn steel in the shogun's court. The sentence is swift. You are ordered to perform seppuku ritual suicide. By nightfall, there is no trial. Your castle, your lands, your name stripped away, and your samurai retainers are dismissed. They are now ronin, masterless. They could have vanished. Some did, but many remained scattered, watchful. Most notably, a man named Chishi Karenasu, senior counselor of the a man of quiet strategy and deeper patience. For a time, the ronin seemed to dissolve. They took jobs. Some became merchants. Others posed as drunkards or beggars. They lived as men without cause, without hope. But behind their eyes, something burned. They had made a vow not to reclaim riches, not to demand restitution, but to avenge, not out of rage, out of duty. Under Aishi's leadership, they began to gather quietly, slowly. They watched Kira's movements, mapped his defenses, waited as years passed and the world forgot them. And Jishi himself did something curious. He moved to Kyoto and played the fool. He drank, stumbled, frequented brothels, and slept in the street. His own allies doubted him, but it was all a mask to lull suspicion. Even Kira's spies reported back. Jishi is broken. The men of Ake are no threat. Until the night came. It is December, the 12th month. The snow falls like silence made visible. The ronin assemble. 47 men, clad in black, armored beneath their robes. Their plan has been drawn in detail. They divide some at the front gate, others at the rear. Inside, Kira's mansion is quiet. His guards are present, but unprepared. They are expecting nothing. The ronin strike with precision. They bind the servants, protecting them. They spare the women and children. No fire, no carnage. This is not revenge for its own sake. It is a sacred act. Eventually, they find Kira, hiding, some say in a secret room. Others say a storage shed. He is dragged forth, trembling. Jishi offers him the dignity Asano was denied. An honorable death by his own hand. Kira cannot do it. And so, they help him. He is beheaded swiftly, his blood staining the snow. The ronin wash his head. Rapid, carry it in silence. They march across the city, not as fugitives, but as monks on pilgrimage, to Sengakuji Temple. There, at Asano's grave, they present the head. They kneel in the snow. They bow. They recite prayers. They fulfill their oath. And then they wait. Their fate becomes a matter for the shogunate. They have broken the law. They have murdered a man without sanction. And yet, they have done so with restraint, with discipline, with loyalty to a dead master, and to Bushido, the code of the warrior. The people of Edo whisper poems about them. Plays are written in secret. The city is divided. Some call them heroes, others fanatics. Some say they restored the samurai ideal. Others say they betrayed it. The shogun deliberates. Weeks pass. Finally, a decision is made. The 47 ronin are sentenced to death, but not as criminals. They are permitted to die by seppuku, with honor. And so, on a quiet morning in February, they prepare. One by one, they kneel, each dressed in white, each writing a final poem, a death verse. The youngest is not yet 17. The oldest in his 60s. They do not cry. They do not tremble. One after another, they pass. With serenity, with purpose, with peace. You can visit their graves today, still in Tokyo. Sengakuji Temple is quiet, shaded by old cedars. The tombstones stand in neat rows. People leave flowers, coins, sometimes folded letters. The scent of incense never truly fades. It is a place of contemplation, not for the violence, but for the stillness beneath it, for the question that has never quite found its answer. Was it justice or a beautiful tragedy? Did they elevate the samurai code or expose its contradiction? Were they noble or simply men with nothing left but an idea? Tonight, we don't need to decide. We sit with their story. Let the snow fall. Let the lanterns flicker. Let your breath slow. Your thoughts quiet. And now, we turn from swords and sorrow to something older still. To dreams whispered in temple halls. To omens and stars. To rituals not of blood, but of spirit. Let us drift now into the shadowed realm of Onmyad, where magic, not steel, shaped the fate of emperors. Where the invisible world walked alongside our own. Where silence was power and every whisper mattered. Segment 3. The hidden world of Japanese Onmyad magic. Tonight, we leave behind the hard lines of sword and scroll and step gently into a softer, stranger world. Not one governed by honor or war, but by rhythm, by shadow, by the invisible forces whispering behind the veil of everyday life. This is the world of Onmyad, the ancient Japanese art of cosmic balance, a system of divination, geomancy, and quiet sorcery. Neither holy religion nor fully science. It was something else, something older, something dreamlike. A thread woven into the soul of Heian-era Japan. Let your breath slow. Let candlelight flicker in your imagination. And walk with me into the chambers of the Onmyuji, the Star Reader, the quiet protector of the Emperor's fate, where paper crackles softly under brush and ink, and the deepest dangers are faced not with blades, but with silence. You find yourself waking in an older Japan, older even than the time of the 47 ronin. The capital is not Edo, but Heian-kyo, modern Kyoto in its infancy. The streets are measured and balanced, built to match the celestial grid. Garden pavilions shimmer in the morning mist. Courtiers float by in layers of silk, murmuring verse under their breath. It is a city designed according to geometric principles and cosmic alignments, because here, the world is not random. It is ruled by patterns, invisible but powerful. To disturb these patterns is to invite disaster. And so, among the scholars, warriors, and priests of this refined city, another figure moves quietly, one whose authority was not declared, but consulted. The Onmyuji. He was not a priest. Not quite a monk, not merely a magician, but something in between. Onmyō, literally, the way of yin and yang, was a spiritual science imported from ancient China, shaped by Taoist cosmology, astrology, Confucian logic, and later Buddhist rituals. In Japan, it blended with native Shinto beliefs and rituals, adapting slowly into something unique. A system of interpreting and maintaining balance between opposing forces, light and dark, hot and cold, motion and stillness. The Onmyō observed this balance, safeguarded it, and when it faltered, acted to restore it. They did not command armies. They did not deliver sermons. They whispered. They watched. And when strange illnesses spread, when dreams grew dark, when misfortune haunted a house like smoke that would not rise, they were summoned. To meet one, you might walk a narrow alley lit by lanterns. You would enter a compound of quiet rooms in older air. Pine resin, parchment, ink. In the corner, a candle flickers. Scrolls line the walls. Astrological charts, diagrams of the 5 elements, and talismans. Thin slips of paper covered in protective glyphs flutter slightly, as if stirred by some unseen breeze. And across from you, seated in stillness, is a figure of great renown. A man not wholly history, not entirely myth. Abe no Saimei. Saimei is the most famous Onmyō in all of Japanese history. Born in the 10th century, his life is chronicled in both imperial records and whispered folktales. Some say his mother was a kitsune, a fox spirit in human form, and that he inherited her second sight. As a child, he saw things others could not. Shadows that lingered too long. Lights in the corner of a room where no lamp burned. The change in a person's aura when they told a lie. He trained in the arcane sciences under the great masters of the time. He learned to read turtle shells cracked by heat, to chart eclipses, and to summon Shikigami invisible spirit familiars that obeyed him like loyal shadows. Some stories say he could control wind. Others claim he battled rival sorcerers in secret duels that left no trace. But the truth may be simpler. He was not a warrior, not a priest, just a balance point, a hinge between the known and the unknown. And when emperors needed protection, not from assassins, but from cosmic imbalance, they turned to him. In the Bureau of Divination, nestled in the heart of Heian-kyo's imperial palace, Onmyō, like Saimei, worked in dim-lit rooms, lined with incense and ritual implements. Their tools? Simple but precise. Calendars that tracked the movements of stars and the flow of ki. Turtle shells for heating and reading fractures. Bundles of reeds, symbols, herbs. Brushes for writing spells. Strokes of meaning on paper and silk. Their duties were many. They set the dates of imperial ceremonies based on celestial harmony. They cleansed buildings before coronations or funerals. They advised whether journeys should be delayed based on an unlucky direction. And when a family lost child after child, or dreams turned sour and animals refused to eat, it was the Onmyō who was summoned. And what did Onmyō mean in everyday life? Imagine a noblewoman nearing childbirth. Before labor, an Onmyō is summoned. He reads the heavens, the moon's cycle, and warns of dangerous hours. He writes a protective talisman to hang in the birthing room. He does not touch the child. He does not chant loudly. He simply restores harmony to a moment that teeters between worlds, or a general preparing for war. He does not move his troops before speaking with the Onmyō. Is the wind from the right direction? Is the moon full or dark? Do the stars suggest victory or death? Even farmers observed Onmyō. When to plant, when to burn fields, when to rest the land. Not from superstition, but out of a belief that nature has rhythm, and that rhythm must be listened to. Over time, however, the world changed. During the Edo period, the government absorbed Onmyō into official bureaucracies. The mystery dulled. The powerful onmyuji became civil servants, issuing almanacs and calculating lucky dates for the state. The 5 elements became paper categories, the talisman's mere tradition. And then came the Meiji Restoration. Western science and rationalism swept through Japan. Divination was dismissed. The bureau dissolved. The old ways were labeled superstition, but they did not vanish. Even today, during Satsubun, people throw roasted soybeans to chase away evil spirits, just as the onmyuji once instructed. Shrines still tie omikuji paper fortunes to branches. The pentagram of Aid no Saime, once a symbol of protection, still appears tucked quietly in tiles, carved into lanterns, embroidered on charms. The language of Onmyad lingers. So, was it magic? Perhaps, but not the kind you see in stories. There were no glowing spells, no transformations. It was not about control. It was about listening to the shape of wind as it curves around mountains, to the hush between thunderclaps, to the pulse of places where 2 rivers meet. The onmyuji did not claim to master the universe. They sought to understand its patterns and restore balance softly. Perhaps that is why their power feels more real than myth. Not loud, not theatrical, but persistent, quiet, enduring. The candles are burning low now. The smoke curls gently toward the ceiling. And from this realm of mystic diagrams and lunar tides, we drift once more into the world of flesh and silk, of strict hierarchies and whispered ambition. For our next step takes us to a different kind of palace, not one of magic, but of masks. Segment 4. What the daimyo's court was really like now. We return from the shadowed corridors of mysticism and enter a place just as ornate, just as tightly bound by ritual, but ruled not by stars or spirits, rather by power, etiquette, and performance. Let the candles of magic and mystery burn low, and follow the sound of your own quiet footsteps, echoing along the polished floors of a grand estate. Let yourself imagine the hush of silk sliding across lacquered wood, the faint, fragrant aroma of sandalwood drifting through sliding paper screens, the sound of sandals tapping in precise rhythm down a corridor of painted panels. We have left the back alleys and ink-stained chambers behind. We now enter a space of elegance, discipline, and unrelenting theater. This is the court of a daimyō, one of Japan's feudal lords. It shimmered with beauty, but beneath that beauty flowed tension, invisible expectations, and the constant performance of status. It was not a place to relax, not even for its most powerful members. The daimyō, whose name means great name, was not quite a king, but more than a noble. During Japan's Edo period, roughly the 1600s to 1800s, these regional lords ruled vast domains on behalf of the shogun, the supreme military ruler. They collected taxes, maintained armies, and upheld law. In return, they received status and scrutiny. The shogunate had learned from centuries of civil war that too much independence could be dangerous. So it devised a velvet leash Sanken Katai, the policy of alternate attendance. Every daimyō was required to spend 1 year in his domain and the next in the capital, Edo, modern-day Tokyo. There, he would reside in a mansion provided by the shogun. He would travel with a grand entourage, often hundreds of samurai, servants, and retainers, creating a display of power that doubled as financial strain. This was no vacation. It was control through grandeur. His family, his wife and heir, were required to remain in Edo year-round, quietly held as hostages of loyalty. Now imagine, you are a mid-ranking samurai in your lord's service. You've just arrived in Edo after weeks on the road. Dust still clings to your armor. Your boots are worn, but you must now transform. Because the court is a place of kata form, every movement is watched. Every word weighs something. A misplaced glance could end a career. The wrong emblem on your clothing, or a seasonal color worn too late. A quiet disaster. And yet, for all its pressure, the rhythm of the court could be mesmerizing. Imagine yourself in the guest quarters of a powerful clan's residence. The air is rich with the scent of sandalwood. A gentle breeze lifts the silken curtains, revealing the inner garden, a small pond, a winding path of flat river stones, and beyond, the painted doors that lead to the inner sanctum of the Lord. You are not a soldier, not a servant. Perhaps you're a poet, an envoy, or a ronin turned retainer hoping to gain favor. But favor here is no easy thing. Every gesture, every syllable, every pause carries significance. Do you bow deeply enough? Speak humbly enough? A wrongly timed sip of tea could mark you as uncultured. Because here, beneath the silence and grace, is the slow suffocation of performance. The daimyo's court was not a home. It was a theater of discipline. Unlike the roaring halls of European kings, this was not a place of feasts or loud celebration. The Japanese elite prized restraint. Elegance was found in what was left unsaid, unseen, undone. Walls were bare, save for a single seasonal painting. The food delicate, exact, almost symbolic. The tea, matcha, whisked in silence and served with both hands. It was not consumed, it was appreciated. Luxury here was not gold or jewels. It was refinement. A rare kimono dyed with safflower red. A sword hilt wrapped in stingray skin. A scroll depicting cranes above pine trees. Its brushwork so delicate, it dared not be touched by breath. The daimyō himself was rarely at ease. Though swaddled in silk and ringed by guards, he lived a life of constant calculation. In the mornings, quiet meals were taken: rice, pickles, broth in lacquered bowls. Visitors were approved. Correspondence read aloud. Even tea, poured by hand, became a sacred ritual of stillness and intent. Afternoons were consumed by governance. Reports were reviewed. Decrees signed. At times, poets or scholars were invited to sit in ritualized discussion, their words as precise as sword strikes. In the evenings, entertainment was offered, but never casually. You might witness a performance of no theater. Masked actors moving in slow, hypnotic rhythm, enacting tales of kings, ghosts, or ancient regrets. The meaning was not in the plot, it was in the stillness, the silence, the rustle of silk between footsteps. Or you might kneel through a tea ceremony that lasted over an hour. The host might be a concubine, a court artisan, or the daimyō himself. The room hushed, every motion a quiet storm of significance. No one laughed. No one spoke loudly. Everything had weight. This was grace, wrapped in pressure. Behind the screens, the inner chambers held their own quiet wars. Wives, concubines, and ladies-in-waiting lived within a strict hierarchy ranked by birth, favor, and proximity. Gossip could destroy. A whisper in the right ear could shift the balance of power. Children, too, were raised beneath this tension. Boys learned poetry and swordsmanship. Girls studied calligraphy, etiquette, and the soft warfare of arranged marriages. Because court politics were often family politics, marriages were weapons. Sons were betrothed to secure peace. Daughters were offered as bridges between clans. Love, if it came, was an accident. Every match was delicate binding like spider silk. To outsiders, it looked graceful. But behind the smiling brides and ceremonial scrolls were moments of quiet resignation or relief. Even the smallest players in the court held quiet power. A steward could tip the balance with a poorly placed rumor. A head gardener's decision about seasonal blooms might be read as a political signal. The wrong poem, offered at the wrong time, might mean you no longer understood the house's emotional landscape. And over it all, the shogun's eyes watched from afar, through officials, envoys, and silent observers. No gesture went unseen. This was the world of the elite, not loud, but suffocating in its silence. Not violent, but edged with quiet dread. Not poor, but hungry for control. It did not destroy with blades or fire. It eroded identity, drowned in etiquette, and broke the will with centuries of silent pressure. Even the daimyō himself was bound, his loyalty absolute, his movements monitored. Every few years, he was summoned to Edo, once more his wealth drained, his power observed, his ambition tempered by the weight of tradition. The courts were beautiful prisons, soft as silk and just as binding. And what of the ronin? He who had once stood among these corridors, who had once bowed at the right moment and spoken the proper seasonal words? He could no longer enter. He had no title to present, no lord to follow, no role to play. He could pass by the gates, hear the laughter, distant and measured, smell the sandalwood curling upward into the dusk. But he could not go in. It was not just the loss of income or prestige. It was the loss of place, of being seen, of mattering. And so the ronin wandered through alleyways, through tea houses, through memory. Now, dear listener, the journey comes gently to rest. You have wandered through the narrow lives of the masterless, walked in the shadows of vengeance, whispered among magicians, and bowed beneath the screens of invisible empires. Let the final lanterns dim. Let the last footsteps fade. The night is cool. The wind is soft. It is time to leave that world behind. Not all at once, but gently. Shall we step quietly into sleep? Conclusion. Where silence holds the past tonight, we've walked through the quieter corridors of history, those rarely illuminated, those soft with dust and long-forgotten breath. You've risen in the cold before dawn, as a masterless samurai, hungry, ashamed, and invisible in a world where honor is everything and yet so easily lost. You felt the scratch of straw beneath you, the weight of a sword you could no longer wield with pride, and the slow, daily erosion of meaning. You followed the 47 ronin not as warriors of legend, but as men bound to a code more rigid than steel. You stood beneath snowy eaves as they planned their vengeance and their deaths. Not a cry for justice, but a final deliberate bow to the ideals that shaped and destroyed them. You drifted deeper still into the realm of magic and ritual, where the air hummed with ancient incantations, and where truth and illusion danced together in the glow of lanterns. Daimyō, a name almost lost, but never truly extinguished. You heard the quiet crackle of a ward burning, the rustle of robes in the dark, the whispered names of spirits who pass unseen. And you entered the world of the daimyō, the polished, precise theater of power, a place of beauty without ease, of ceremony without end. You felt the weight of every bow, every cup of tea, every unspoken word. And you saw at last that even luxury can be its own kind of cage. All these lives, so different from ours, yet each of them human, each filled with hopes they couldn't always name, fears they buried deep, and small comforts that sustained them, the rhythm of footsteps on a garden path, the warmth of broth on a winter morning, the hush of night falling beyond rice paper walls. The past, as you've seen tonight, is not always glorious. Often it is quiet, uncomfortable, full of waiting, watching, enduring. And perhaps in that way, it isn't so different from today. But where their world was filled with uncertainty, yours now holds peace. Where they bowed under the weight of unseen codes, you can simply lie back, breathe slowly, and let go. You don't need to rise with the bell at dawn. You don't need to sharpen a blade or bow to a lord. Your battles are done for the day. Let the silence carry you now, as it carried them gently, invisibly, into sleep. May your dreams be soft. May your rest be deep. And may you wake tomorrow in a world far kinder than the ones we visited tonight. Sleep well, traveler. Until our next quiet journey, good night